Hey everybody, it's Mark, Dr. Deadwax, and it's time for day 43 of the Inbox Challenge, week 7. Random awesomeness, Logan picked the numbers for today. Logan picked the same number 3 times. The only person who didn't quite get the concept, but he picked 06, 06, 06. So I played with that a little, and I got 06, and then the square of 6, which is 36, and then I flipped 06 backwards and chose 60. So those are how I got today's records. Let's get started. First record is the Police, Ghost in the Machine, and this is a Nautilus Super Discs recording. Now, I talked about Nautilus recordings before. Notice that it's Super Discs DISCS because there was also Super Discs DISKS, and that's a completely different company that made direct-to-disc recordings or something. Title of the record comes from Arthur Koestler's The Ghost of the Machine, which is a piece of philosophical work, and I'm not going to get into that. You can get into that yourselves. I got this from a collection off a guy on a forum. Paid $3 or $4 for it. He had all these kind of direct-to-discs and special pressings that were all of these big sample stickers on them, and I think he ripped them off of most of them, but thankfully, this one he didn't ruin. To me, that doesn't really take away from the value of the record as much as a huge, gaping flesh wound does. And the Deadwax's is stamped KM, which stands for KM Records. Now, when I talked about Super Discs before, I talked about them in regards to Dreamboat Annie by Heart, and if you search my page, you can enter that and find my talking about that. And one of the things I said is that the Nautilus records are typically digital transfers before they were analog takes transferred to digital before they were cut to direct-to-disc. Now I don't know how much that matters with this. I'm not sure if this record is 100% analog or not, because by 1981 a lot of records were already working at some point in the digital chain. Or in the digital realm, sorry. And here's the label, the Nautilus label with A&M. And the Deadwax's is KM Records. And I mentioned them before in relation to Tower of Power's direct-to-disc from Sheffield Labs. And again, you can search Tower of Power if you want to go back and watch that. But KM stands for KM Records, and they were the people that would have manufactured this record. So this wasn't necessarily pressed in an A&M factory. This was actually pressed by KM, and that kind of makes sense because they were known for pressing Sheffield Lab records. Comes with a cool Super Discs inner sleeve, which is unusual to. That's the first one I've ever found in one of these, so that's kind of nice to come up with. Sonically, I mean, I think my first Canadian pressing sounds better than this. This is okay in the mids and the highs, but the bottom end of this record is missing. It just is not full and lush like it is on my American and US early pressings, and I don't even have a UK, and that's supposed to be good. Some people say this betters a UK. This doesn't better a Canadian, so I don't know how the hell they say that. My favorite song on here is Invisible Sound. I really like that. I like the topic, which is about Northern Ireland, and some other things on here. Spirits in the Material World was a big hit. Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic was a hit. Secret Journey and Darkness are kind of pretty cool songs. Now, when I was a kid, this came out when I was like 12 or 13, 14, whatever. We were all told that this was Ghost in the Machine in Japanese. But supposedly, I mean, unless somebody's fucking around on Wiki, these actually are representations of the members of the band, with Andy Sumner. Spiky hair here is Sting, and this is Stuart Copeland. Andy Sumner, not Sumner. It's Gordon Sumner. Sting's real name. I always get that. I always do that. So overall, I don't know. It's a pretty good record. I paid $3 or $4 for it. That's a good price to pay for a Nautilus Super Disc. If you can find them for that, buy them. As with a lot of these things, if they're much more than that, pay the money for an original pressing. And my God, it's a Police record. You can find an original pressing of a Police record for like $1 or $2 almost anywhere. and which is, you know, there was just so many of them made and sold, and that they're just dirt cheap. And it's not a comment on the music, because I think basically all 5 Police records are very strong. I mean, some people will argue that the first 2 are the only ones worth listening to because they're more like an edgy post-punk band back then. That's just a tight trio. This here, they're, you know, I think it's Andy Summers says, you know, we were now a pop band. We were now a backing band for a pop maniac, which was a good old Sting, because, you know, Andy's not playing guitar. His guitar lines are being replaced by keyboards. Sting's recording saxophone on this, but this still works as a pop record. And Synchronicity, the next record, is a pretty brilliant pop record. So, you know, it's just a perfect 10. No. But I still think almost anything by the Police is a pretty good record. I just, you know, it's grossly overplayed, and you know, the egos just got to be a bit too much to deal with after a while. Next is Traffic, Shootout at the Fantasy Factory. This is a 1973 record, I believe. Yeah. And this is the first Canadian pressing. Oh, it's got the die-cut cover, the same die-cut as Low Spark or High Heeled Boys did. It has the die-cut inner as well, which is cool to find. Did I say this was a Canadian? This is Canadian first pressing. There's the back cover. This is on... But this is unusual. I don't really see too many of these. Island Pink Room from Canada. Now that's logo beside stereo. That's the guy who owned this record. He would either stamp his name Fennel on these records, or he put that logo on. I've shown records from that collection before. I bought them off a dealer friend of mine who let me have a crack at the collection before he put it out in the store. So Pink Rim Island for Canada, that's pretty uncommon. This was pressed at the MCA Cornwall plant, Cornwall, Ontario. This was released on Capitol, though, and it's an Island record, but the back cover says released by Capitol, manufactured and distributed by Capitol Records of Canada. And interesting, we were talking about the MCA Gloversville mark yesterday, which was square brackets with a G in the middle and square brackets. And I mentioned that there's a rare stamper mark for the Canadian Cornwall plant, but it's unusual because you very rarely see it. You see it on this one, because this one here, the plates weren't manufactured at Gloversville and sent to Canada. The plates were mastered at Masterdisc, and it says Masterdisc LH, which stands for Lee Hulko. And Lee Hulko, I've seen his signature many times. I think he did an excellent job. I've even seen them oftentimes. You'll see RL/LH, so it's like Robert Ludwig started the job and had to go to the bathroom, and Lee finished it, or else Lee was an apprentice under Ludwig. But who knows? I don't know specifically what that story is. So because these plates were not done at Gloversville, they didn't have the MCA stamp on them, so MCA put their stamp on them at the Canadian plant. And let's just see if we can get this to pop or not. But here you can see at the very bottom where the 211 is, just beside it, you can very, very, very faintly see a circle with a little circle in it, a dash, the letter C, and another dash, and it's right there at 6 o'clock underneath the 211, very faint. So that's really unusual. I mean, I've only heard about that before. I've never seen that. So, because typically most things pressed at the MCA plant in Cornwall were pressed from plates from the US, and they already had an MCA mark on them. So that's pretty cool. Musically, this is a record that's panned by the critics. I don't agree. I really enjoy this record. I think this is a good record. It has a you know, maybe it doesn't live up to John Barleycorn Must Die, which personally I'm not a huge fan of, and maybe it doesn't live up to Low Spark of High Heeled Boys, but, you know, not every record you make in a career is the seminal record for the band. Something has to be the best record. This is typically, you know, this is not the best record Traffic ever did. But I really like it. It's got excellent jams on it. Songs are long, free-form, kind of jazz, bluesy jazz and feel, some of them. I really like them. And interesting, on the North American pressings of this record, Shoot at the Fantasy Factory and Roll Right Stones have longer versions than are available on apparently any other vinyl pressings of this record, and they weren't reintroduced until later. So they're actually 2 minutes longer. That side has actually got 2 minutes more music than subsequent pressings of this record that came out later. So that's kind of cool. Give this record another chance. I really liked it. And last but not least is Grant Green, Idle Moments on Blue Note. This is a fucking masterpiece. Joe Henderson, Bobby Hutcherson, Duke Pearson, Bob Cranshaw, Al Harewood, and Grant Green. I mean, killer lineup. Joe Henderson on sax. Bobby Hutcherson, you know, I am not a massive fan of the vibes, but Bobby Hutcherson, just his vibes really, they're just great on this record, and they really blend well with Grant Green's guitar playing. Sadly, this is a Blue Note Direct Metal Master, just monstrously horrible record. The finest in jazz since 1939. That's one way you can tell these DMMs. This doesn't actually have the DMM on the label, but it does have the DMM logo on the back cover. So this is a 1987 reissue of this record. So by the mid to late 80s, these were all direct metal masters. Now, I mean, and this is, you know, here's another reason why I hate direct metal masters. If you look at this record is just absolutely pristine. And it has noise through like 60% of it. Because another problem with direct metal masters, besides the fact that they're bright and shrill, is the groove, because it's cut directly into a metal plate instead of into a lacquer, is a lot shallower. So it just can't take any kind of wear. This record has no damage, and it's noisy as shit, just from any dirt that ever got on it, or maybe a bad stylist. It just, there's so little topography in the groove that it's just incredibly easy to be damaged. Idle Moments on here is just a masterpiece of a track. They recorded it, and it was supposed to be like half the length it actually was. But the musicians were confused about how long it was supposed to run and stuff like that, so it ran twice as long. Were they going to do a 16-bar repeat, or were they going to repeat 32 bars? And anyway, so it runs twice as long as it's supposed to. And they decided to cut another take to make it the length it was supposed to, and they did several, and none of them were as good as the long version, to the point that they decided to keep this long version, and they re-recorded a couple other tracks on the record shorter. So, I cannot help but recommend you buy this record, and you don't buy a direct metal master pressing. So that's it. This was, I think it was $8 in a store. I'm not going to not buy direct metal master pressings when they're $8 or $10. A lot of places put a premium on direct metal master because people think that direct metal master means it's an audiophile pressing. It does not mean it's an audiophile pressing. It means it's a bright shrill piece of shit. But to have a copy of this on vinyl, you know, I'll take a digital transfer of a direct, you know, whatever. I could just rail on that for like hours. shoot out at the Fantasy Factory. Traffic, first pressing Canadian. It's gorgeous, and it sounds gorgeous, and the music's wonderful. Find it, check it out, give it another chance if you've heard it and not liked it. I think it has some moments that's lovely jazz feel to them. And police, you know, love them, hate them, whatever. So Logan, those are your numbers. Thanks for picking some numbers and playing along, and thanks everybody for watching and commenting and subscribing and heckling and watching my hair fall out and putting up with my ranting. Have a great day. Keep dark and respect.